The earthvox podcast. The earthvox podcast. earthvox podcast.
Is it working? Oh man, I was scrambling. I got another movie review for your pleasure. Oh, did I just screw something up? This mouse, I swear, this mouse is giving me absolute fits. I'm sorry to report. It's always something. Yes, it is. I saw 28 years later, which I was very excited about because I'm a big fan of zombie movies. I've been a big fan of zombie movies ever since I saw, what did I see? The Night of the Living Dead, but not the original 1960, whenever it came out, George Romero, but the 90s reboot, which I think has been rebooted. They got to stop rebooting movies, but I saw The Night of the Living Dead from the 90s, and I was far too young. I should not have been allowed to watch it. But my dad thought it was okay. And I'm not blaming him at all, because often I want my children to be able to watch the movies that I enjoy. Unfortunately, I remember what it was like to be a child afraid of the dark and afraid to go to bed by myself because I watched scary movies. And I still watch scary movies. I love them. And 28 years later was recently released on Netflix. So naturally, I told my wife, we have to watch this movie before our Netflix subscription expires, because that's happening, I think, here in just a few days. So we queued it up, watched the whole thing in one night, which is kind of uncharacteristic because we're old, tired people. And I have to say, I was a little bit disappointed. I was disappointed in 28 years later, the same way that I was disappointed in The Walking Dead after, 6 seasons or however many seasons it was before it took a turn for not woke, not, it became naturally, of course, about the actors. I think that it's kind of a sensible business decision. Like, hey, we're paying these actors thousands of dollars an episode. Let's make them work for their money instead of paying these actors to act half the time while the other half of the time we're showing epic hordes of zombies taking over cities, which is, I think, what most of us tune in to see, kind of in the same way that we watch, or most people, or some people, probably a greater majority, watch NASCAR events for the epic crashes, and figure skating for the epic fails. Or maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm a terrible person. So 28 Days Later started as, like, I don't know, an independent European horror film with a virus that is released because an animal rights group breaks into the lab where the chimpanzees are being held. And unbeknownst to them, the chimps have been infected with, they called it rage. Oh, that's the virus, rage. Oh, because of course scientists would come up with a cool name like rage for whatever virus they were. But it's engaging, right? Ooh, rage, I'm interested. And they release the chimps that are infected with rage, and the chimps attack, of course, the animal rights activists that have broken into this lab and attack, they savage them because they're infected with rage. So, and this is one of the things that was particularly captivating about the lore, the universe. Now we have the 28 days universe, and I think up to that point, the lore of zombies is that they're all kind of, decrepit, rigor mortis. They move slowly and shamble, and the scary part about zombies before that point was just that they're kind of relentless and move in big groups and will smash down your door and eventually overwhelm you. That was the scary part about zombies in the 60s and 70s, when George Romero was making probably pretty bad but intriguing, at least for me, movies about zombies. So we had, I think, our first fast-moving, sprinting zombie movie in 28 Days Later, and it was great. I think it probably made way more money than the creators anticipated. Danny Boyle and, is it Boyle or Broyle? Why do I never remember these things? I want to say Danny Broyle. No, it's Boyle. Danny Boyle and Alex Garland created 28 Days Later to great success. It had Cillian Murphy and that other guy that if you've watched the movie, whose name is escaping me. He was in The Banshees of Inisherin. I don't know about most recently, but a recent notable film that he was in. And so naturally, as often is the case, Hollywood was like, whoa, wait a minute, this was wildly successful. We got to make a franchise. We got to get Jeremy Renner and a few other people that you might recognize to make 28 Weeks Later, which honestly started out with one of the best opening sequences that I think I've ever seen, at least in a horror movie. So naturally, 28 Years Later was highly anticipated for me, and they weren't going to make it. It was supposed to be 28 months later, because because days, weeks, months, and then years, but we didn't get that. We got 28 Years Later, which I think was crowdfunded to an extent, because the consumers, myself included, really wanted the franchise to continue. But I don't know, maybe they couldn't catch Danny Boyle molesting any kids, so they were like, we don't have crazy, the elitists that run Hollywood. No doubt. Said, we don't have any blackmail material over you. You haven't done anything for me lately, so we're not going to let you make this movie. Nevertheless, it came out and it was okay. It was more about the people and their inner struggles than it was about the horror. Everything was kind of built on the bad decisions of a 12-year-old. So I spent a lot of my time rolling my eyes, even though, you could give credit to the writers. Like, it's easy to believe that a 12-year-old would be making these ridiculous decisions. And I won't spoil the ending, but I could potentially spoil the endings of the others, although I don't think I will. I will encourage you, if you like horror movies, check out 28 Days Later, check out 28 Weeks Later, and go ahead. I would give 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later an 8 out of 10. 28 Years Later, probably maybe a 6.5. It was okay. It wasn't, and I think the rest of the community of fans around this franchise would agree, this wasn't the movie that we wanted. It was okay. It felt very much like one of the later, more disappointing seasons of The Walking Dead. So if you know what I'm talking about, then you know what I'm talking about. Welcome to the show. Thank you very much for joining me. It was a hell of a week. So many things to talk about. First, I don't know. I'm a little bit insecure and self-conscious about this topic because it's my own kooky theories, but I brought up last week the factions and how I felt for a while that we're being pulled in a few different directions, a seesaw back and forth. Of course, there's the global elite, but they're a faction in their own, trying to accomplish some goal. We don't know. Then we have the opposite side, seemingly to be held up by Trump. And then there's the faction of, would seem to be Islamo-fascist. It feels like we're entering a new crusade era. It's the Christians against the Muslims. And the Muslims are, they're really doing it right. I don't know if right is how you would qualify it, but they're immigrating to areas. They're having 9 kids apiece, or, per family, or maybe even per woman, who they are raising to be devout Muslims. And it's interesting because what occurs to me immediately is that, this is just the natural course of actions taken by an opposing faction that would wish to overwhelm any given country. They see the lax immigration laws. They see the funding of immigration by NGOs. They facilitate this, of course, because there are so many unbelievably wealthy Muslim countries that they can afford to facilitate a peaceful invasion around the world. And I think that's what they're doing. And this is based on their beliefs, the teachings of the Quran, and their desire to spread Islam throughout the world. On its face, there's not really anything wrong with that, except now we're seeing the consequences of allowing this to happen. So we have largely the Christian West pitted against the Muslim, whatever, East. And then a third party, a death cult. And Islam they're kind of functioning like the Zerg from StarCraft. If you've ever played those games, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They're a weird, think aliens from the movie Starship Troopers. If you've seen Starship Troopers and you know the aliens, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. But in StarCraft, you can send in a unit to infest the operations of the Terrans, which is the human faction. There's 3 factions in StarCraft. There's the Protoss, which is kind of like you could almost call them. They could almost resemble the Christian West. Then you have the Zerg, which could represent the Muslims, and then you have the Terrans, which are just whatever, middle of the road, maybe atheistic. But this is basically the course of action that Islam has been following. Moving in peacefully, having a bunch of kids, winning elections, dictating policy. I don't know why they're allowed to vote, why they're allowed to seek benefits, welfare benefits from the countries that they're inhabiting. But they are. And this is how they're taking over. And it's creating massive unrest that's going on right now. We'll talk more about that because, of course, there's been a lot of exciting happenings this week. Wednesday was a big day. Trump ended the war in Gaza effectively. It's only phase one. I will concede. It's only phase one, but we have a peace deal. And I asked Grok, what does a peace deal mean? What are the details? And he responded, the Gaza peace deal refers to a U.S. brokered ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. And I think I just need to add, because we know Grok is susceptible to leftist policies. I think they're calling it a ceasefire because that is like the most basic surrender type peace deal language that the left is willing to use. Because you would think, oh, we've accomplished this great momentous thing in this peace deal in the Middle East. Trump again delivering on peace in the Middle East, but they got to minimize. But the key details of phase one: ceasefire and troop withdrawal. Hostilities have halted, with Israeli forces partially pulling back to an agreed line, allowing Palestinians to return to ruined areas in northern Gaza. But Israel still retains control of about 60% of the Gaza Strip. Hamas is set to release all remaining living hostages, around 20, and provide information on any deceased one within 72 hours of the troop pullback. They just killed all the hostages or let them die. In exchange, Israel will free 250 long-term Palestinian prisoners and 1,700 detainees captured during the war. So, if you're still on the fence about who you're supporting in this conflict, consider all of the hostages that Hamas captured and how many are living, still alive, versus how many hostages Israel captured, which are still alive and returnable. Finally, the deal allows for increased humanitarian aid and includes provisions for Hamas to eventually hand over Gaza's administration to a neutral party. Subsequent phases aim for a permanent ceasefire, full hostage release, and broader reconstruction. But implementation remains fragile, with conditional acceptance from both sides. When this news came out, my initial thought was, okay, by the time we wake up in the morning, something will have changed. Someone will have attacked, and it will be over. But it's held so far. The deal seems to be on. But no Nobel Peace Prize for Trump. No. Instead, it went to Maria Corina Machado, who won for standing up to Maduro in Venezuela. Okay. Anything to stop Trump from a win, which is why the left is still complaining. They still want to free Palestine. They're still fighting. There's huge protests. I mean, if you could call it that, going on in Switzerland right now. Because their grievances are never about what they say they're about. Their grievance is really just, I need you to do something to facilitate my conquering of your country. That's what it feels like. And hasn't that always been the left? I mean, I don't know. Do conservatives protest? It doesn't really seem like it. It seems like they just want to be left alone. Which is, I think, how we got to this place. We've been too willing to say, okay, I'm just going to move out to the woods and let you do your crazy thing in the cities. So they said, great, that's going to give us a base of operations for all the other plans that we have to take your freedoms away. Ruin your life. Make everything you have so expensive that the income you've been generating from your farm out there in the country isn't enough to even cover the property taxes. on this land that you supposedly own. I'm efforting a guest to talk about some pretty crazy things that pertain to land ownership. I may have an update about that in the next couple of weeks. But on the good news side, Donald Trump passed coal and, well, I should say, Congress passed coal and oil legislation that will, according to Donald Trump, bring fuel prices down to $2 a gallon, probably before taxes.
In our quest to lower drug prices for all Americans, prices have come way down. We've gotten prices way down for groceries, for oil especially. Today we broke $60 a barrel. We think the oil is going to be under $2 a gallon very soon. That's about 70% lower than what it was just a year ago. So that's a big thing. And when the oil comes down, everything comes down. It's pretty beautiful to watch.
As of yesterday, oil prices are down below $60 a barrel to $59.75. I wonder if it's come lower than that. I'm going to pull it up. Oil price per barrel today. It's probably gone back up. I don't know what it means. I don't know. It's showing me, Google is showing me WTI crude at $58.90 per barrel. But then Murban crude and Brent crude are still up over $60 a barrel. Gasoline one day at 182. Yeah, I'm too dumb to understand this, but this should dramatically help the average American consumer. I mean, gas going under $2 a barrel. The only thing is we have to worry about the benevolence of the companies that are now going to benefit from cheap energy to actually bring their prices down and pass the savings on to the consumer. Do you think they're going to do that? I remember a story that my stepdad told me about the price of Hershey bars back in, when dinosaurs roamed the earth. They were a nickel a piece. And then something happened, I think, with sugar tariffs or export controls that sent the price of a Hershey bar up to 50 cents, from a nickel to 50 cents. What a crazy price increase. And it never returned. It never returned to that price. Things changed, economic things adjusted in such a way that he suggested that the price should have gone back down to a more reasonable amount. But no, it stayed high. And I experienced that, similar things in 2008, 2009, the Obama era, when the price of fuel was so high that delivery companies, freight companies, were adding fuel surcharges to their, late bills of lading because the price of fuel was so astronomical. But even after the price started to come down, and for months after it had returned to normal, perhaps you could say, there were still fuel surcharges listed on these freight bills because the company will do it for as long as they can get away with it. More good news: the Palisades arsonist has been arrested. Brianna Morello posts on X. Pay attention. The man accused of starting the Palisades fire that devastated parts of Los Angeles frequently posted on social media about global warming's role in wildfires. On Facebook, Jonathan Rinderknecht shared content about environmental collapse, ridiculed President Trump and his supporters, and advocated for veganism. One post included a ProPublica article, "Climate Change Will Force a New American Migration," featuring a thumbnail of wildfires burning through a California hillside neighborhood. And this story was largely covered up because of, the other things that we're going to talk about. Because the elitists definitely don't want you to know that climate change is the scam that will allow them to control your life even more than they already do. You got to have carbon credits. We got to study your carbon footprint because you are a filthy peasant polluting the world. And we can't have that. So you're banned from, living. Because we just don't like you. And we're so wealthy that we can make you miserable. We will beat you into submission. We will use all the tools available to us to make sure you submit. Because that's what all this is about. A friend of mine told me earlier this week, I thought it was really profound. They don't care about making money anymore. They care about being in control of you. They care about power. Getting rich isn't funny anymore. Getting rich isn't fun anymore. Dominating your inferiors is where they're getting their jollies now. But they've been greeted with a rude awakening. That is Donald Trump. And even though the redemption, the retribution has been a little bit slow, we finally have some indictments, starting with Letitia James being indicted for mortgage fraud. The same thing that she went after Donald Trump for. She has now, evidence has been revealed that she is guilty of the same things that she tried to accuse Donald Trump of, although her political persecution of Donald Trump yielded nothing and will yield nothing because there's no evidence. Unlike Letitia James' case, where they have the mortgage applications, that she lied about where her primary residence was going to be so that she could get a better interest rate, which is exactly what they accused Donald Trump of doing. We may have played this video on the show before, probably months ago when it was first revealed. But to refresh your memory, this was how she initially responded when she learned of the indictment.
Representing our respective states, stand up and enforce the rule of law. The President of these United States is not above the law.
No matter how rich, powerful, or politically connected you are, everyone must play by the same rules.
Please sue him for us.
Oh, we're going to definitely sue him. We're going to be a real pain in the
And that was from her campaign to become New York's AG. That, oh yeah, we're going to go after Donald Trump. Don't you worry. We're going to find something.
And now the Trump Justice Department may be a pain in her you-know-what. The Angle has obtained shocking allegations leveled by the Trump administration against New York Attorney General Letitia James. The Federal Housing Finance Agency has sent a criminal referral to the DOJ accusing James of mortgage fraud. In a letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi, Director Bill Pulte says James appears to have falsified records in order to meet certain lending requirements and receive favorable loan terms. He cited a property in Virginia that she's allegedly claimed as her principal residence and a property in New York that she claimed as a 4-unit structure instead of the required, instead of a 5, which Pulte says means she was able to get a different type
of land assessments, of tax assessments. So it seems to me like these people, these Democrats, these criminal Democrats, said, of course, Trump's a real estate mogul. Of course, he has to be guilty of mortgage fraud, like we all are, right? He's got to be, because we're all doing it ourselves, and he's not better than us. So let's go after him for it. We can get him. The headline from CNN, Letitia James, the New York Attorney General who defeated Trump in court, even though that case has been suspended, indicted by Justice Department. James has been under investigation since May over a 2023 mortgage she took out to buy a home in Norfolk, Virginia. Thursday's indictment focused on a 2020 mortgage for a different property in Norfolk. The grand jury returned 2 felony charges. The grand jury, not Donald Trump, not even Pam Bondi, unilaterally deciding, oh, we're going to go. No, a grand jury returned 2 felony charges, bank fraud and making false statements to a financial institution. James' first court appearance is scheduled for October 24th in Norfolk. And I think it's been recently announced that her judge is a Biden appointee. So perhaps nothing comes of this. But I've heard it said the case is airtight, or it wouldn't have been brought. I'm not a lawyer, so that remains to be seen. But I am reminded of Letitia James' tweet that came out when she was facing scrutiny for the unprecedented prosecution of a former president. Bad Hombre shares Letitia's tweet on X. When powerful people cheat to get better loans, it comes at the expense of hardworking people. Everyday Americans cannot lie to a bank to get a mortgage, and if they did, our government would throw the book at them. There simply cannot be different rules for different people. I guess we'll find out if the judge agrees. I hate that I can't have faith in the justice system. To look at the evidence and say, yes, blindly, this is a crime. Laws were broken. Not laws were broken, but it's my buddy Tish, so we can't actually convict her because, I mean, she's better than you. She is the upper crust. She's the preferred class. She did all of our bidding when we told her to go after Donald Trump. We have to protect her now. What would happen if you lied on your mortgage documents? Would your life be ruined? Well, it certainly would be if AG Letitia James was given your case to prosecute. This is her most recent, as I understand, statement on the charges she is about to be facing. And it's, I mean, get your barf bags ready.
This is nothing more than a continuation of the president's desperate weaponization of our justice system. He is forcing federal law enforcement agencies to do his bidding, all because I did my job as the New York State Attorney General. These charges are baseless, and the president's own public statements make clear that his only goal is political retribution at any cost. The president's actions are a grave violation of our constitutional order and have drawn sharp criticism from members of both parties. His decision to fire a United States attorney who refused to bring charges against me and replace them with someone who is blindly loyal not to the law, but to the president, is antithetical to the bedrock principles of our country.
It was a grand jury. He didn't just say, go get him. A grand jury saw the evidence and said, yeah, that's 2 felonies. Based on evidence, based on facts and data.
This is the time for leaders on both sides of the aisle to speak out against this blatant perversion of our system of justice. I stand strongly behind my office's litigation against the Trump Organization. We conducted a 2-year investigation based on the facts and evidence, not politics. Judges have upheld the trial court's finding that Donald Trump, his company, and his 2 sons are liable for fraud.
Yeah. Shut up. Corrupt liar. Corrupt liar. Obviously, at this point, the justice system around Letitia James couldn't even bring themselves to formally charge or convict, I should say, to formally convict Donald Trump because it was such a disaster. I just asked Grok while she was diarrheaing from her mouth. How would a president bully a grand jury into returning charges? A president, Grok answers, attempting to bully a grand jury into returning charges would generally involve indirect pressure through executive influence. Get this, given the legal protections around grand jury proceedings, which are typically secret and independent. So, once again, the left will make accusations with no evidence, relying on your own ignorance to trick you into believing them. But we got Big Tish. Got her. Comey pled not guilty. No shock there. And John Bolton also indicted for classified documents. It's almost as if Trump is doing exactly what we hoped he would do in holding the people who were actually guilty accountable for the things that they were trying to convict him of. Moving on, we have evidence, statements about who is funding Antifa. It was Seamus Bruner from this Breitbart article. Oh God. Government accountability in investigation. I can't remember. GAIs. Whenever I see GAI, if you're watching the video, we're on YouTube and Twitch and X and Rumble. Choose Rumble if you want to see the video and you're listening on audio. Whenever I see GAI, which is the first word in this Breitbart article, I think General Artificial Intelligence, but it's Government Accountability Institute. So GAI's Seamus Bruner reveals left-wing funders such as Royce Singham behind Antifa riots. They're the funders. From the article, Seamus Bruner, the director of research at the Government Accountability Institute, revealed that left-wing funders such as billionaire Neville Royce Singham were behind left-wing Antifa riots and protests. During a roundtable event on Antifa with President Donald Trump, Bruner explained that he, GAI President Peter Schweizer, and their team followed a trail of money and followed it to the top of what they called the Protest Industrial Complex, or Riot Inc., Bruner explained that the so-called Riot Inc. was made up of many different divisions. I lost my place. And that, quote, dozens of radical organizations have received millions of dollars from Riot Inc. Let's watch the video.
Story about violence and chaos, as you alluded to, Mr. President. This is a money story. And at the Government Accountability Institute, my colleague and I, Peter Schweitzer and our team, we followed the money, and we followed it to the top of what we call the protest industrial complex, Riot Inc. And we found a network of NGOs. It's not just the Soros network, the Open Society network, it's other funding networks, the Arabella funding network, the Tides funding network, Neville Roy Singham and his network, Foreign Cash. And it's also big left-wing funders. Some of them are not citizens of this country. Mr. Hans-Jörg Wyss of Switzerland. They're pouring money into this entire ecosystem. And so I want to share 3 money facts with you about what we call Riot Inc. Number one, like any corporation, Riot Inc. has many divisions. It doesn't just have the Antifa boots on the ground division. It has PR divisions. It has marketing divisions. It has a very well-funded legal division to get these boots on the ground back on the streets as quickly as possible.
This is one of the really interesting things that I think we probably all learned over the last couple of weeks. The National Lawyers Guild that is on the ground in these Antifa incursions, providing legal assistance to the rioters, wearing green hats so everybody knows this is this person, don't attack them. This is your lawyer. Don't throw a brick at his face.
But it does have those investors that I mentioned. Number two, we have identified dozens of radical organizations, not just the decentralized Antifa organizations, but dozens of radical organizations that have received more than $100 million from the Riot Inc. investors. These would be the lawyer groups. These would be the groups that advocate for calling good, honest Americans fascists, etc. And then 3, I think the most shocking thing is that we have found that more than $100 million in U.S. taxpayer funding has flowed into these funding networks, including at least $4 million to these very groups themselves, not just Antifa types, but there was an event in Atlanta called Stop Cop City. Over 60 rioters were charged with domestic terrorism. These groups received money for that from both the billionaire class as well as taxpayer money. So one other thing, this money helps fund the decentralized crowdfunding platforms. These are ways that Antifa, the John Brown Gun Club of Elm Fork, which had links to that attack on the ICE facility, the Socialist Rifle Association, and just because they don't have LLCs or EIN numbers doesn't mean they can't get paid. Some of these funding platforms, crowdfunding platforms, are funded by this network that we call Riot Inc. So, again, I want to thank you for your leadership, for the whole cabinet's leadership on this. We're going to keep following the money and appreciate everything you're doing, sir.
And we know that these people are getting money because we've covered it. We've covered the Craigslist ads. We've covered the actual people being confronted on the street and basically shown their own documents that says, hey, oh, hey, look, we found this. We found out you're getting paid by George Soros. Here was Kash Patel's, or one of Kash Patel's great moments at this Antifa roundtable.
Deserve a country where you are protected as equally as they are. We in this FBI will go after with the criminals with a vengeance. We will not rest until we find every single seed, money, donor, organization, and funding mechanism that we have. And I want to echo the Secretary's comments on Scott Bessent, who's allowing us to map out these networks through their financial criminal activities, which has been going on for decades. And I would like to remind the American public, they built this disease temple of corruption over decades. And in 8 short months, Mr. President, you have crippled their foundation because of your leadership here, because of the interagency, because of people like Deputy Attorney General Blanche, and because of Attorney General Pam Bondi's fearless leadership to go after criminals wherever they are. They will not be able to hide.
Because Barack Obama went in to these cities and kneecapped their law enforcement. I'm going to jump ahead. We're going to get back to Antifa. But we talked about the consent decree in Portland last week. And I wanted to know what other cities, because Chicago has been a big problem. Portland, we covered. Huge problem. What other cities were targeted by the Obama DOJ with these consent decrees that kneecapped law enforcement and empowered criminals? How many other police bureaus were targeted? I learned Seattle, New Orleans, Baltimore, Albuquerque, Ferguson, and of course, Portland. You remember Ferguson? That was the, what was the guy's name? Was Brown, who was killed by law enforcement for selling single cigarettes. That was the official story from the mainstream media. So they took this questionable police action. He was guilty of much more. If I remember correctly, he had just robbed a liquor store. The mainstream media takes these police actions, fabricates the information, lies to you about it, and foments a riot. Then Barack Obama says, we need a commitment from leadership in these cities and these police bureaus that they're going to stop violating people's rights, they say. Basically forcing these police departments to agree to not enforce the laws. Then George Soros finances prosecutors and district attorneys, helps them win elections on the backs of other corrupt companies that I have a little more information on. And we have completely lawless cities overrun by Antifa, where people are afraid to walk down the street. The people that live there, the people that pay taxes, can't even go to the park because the takeover is on. The invasion is on. The overthrow of your country is happening right now. So Trump decided he was going to designate Antifa as an international terrorist organization. And this was how he made the announcement. Priceless. Just priceless. In some other press conference, I guess you could call it, it doesn't seem to be the same Antifa roundtable. But he took this question from a journalist.
Are you going to work with your administration as the Secretary of State's here? Are you going to work with your administration to designate it a foreign terror organization?
You mean it?
She's so nervous. Oh my God, did you hear that? Let's listen again. She's so nervous. I love it.
Are you going to work with your administration as the Secretary of State's here? Are you going to work with your administration to designate it a foreign terror organization?
You mean it a terror?
Antifa? A foreign terror organization.
Well, has that been done? Pretty close, right? Would you like to see it done?
Yes, Mr. President.
Do you think it would help?
They have foreign
I'd be
links
glad
all
to
across
do it. I
Western
think it's
Europe.
the kind of thing I'd like to do. If you'd like, does
Middle
everybody
East.
agree? If you agree, I agree. Let's get it done. Okay? Let's get it done. Marco, we'll take care of it.
Mr. President.
That's international, you mean?
Yes.
International.
Mr. President.
Sounds good to me.
Foreign terror organization.
Steve, are you okay with it?
Yes, it's true. There are extensive foreign ties, and I think that would be a very valid step to take.
Good, I think so too.
Yes.
Good, I think it's a good point. Thank you.
Yes, foreign funding. Foreign entities are funding this international terrorist organization that is taking over our cities and attacking federal law enforcement while being assisted by local governors and mayors. Here's Brandon Johnson from Chicago on Fox News emboldening Antifa.
Today, we are signing an executive order aimed at reining in this out-of-control administration. The order establishes ICE-free zones. That means that city property and unwilling private businesses will no longer serve as staging grounds for these raids. And today, we are signing an executive order.
And J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, takes it a step farther.
They think they can fool us all into thinking that the way to get out of this crisis that they created is to give them...
That they created. They created the crisis by going into Chicago and other areas of Illinois to remove criminals and illegal aliens, to stop them from harming the tax-paying voters that live there. And this is the response that we're getting from the leadership.
Free reign. Well, that plan will only work if we let it. The state of Illinois is going to use every lever at our disposal to resist this power grab and get gnomes, thugs, the hell out of Chicago.
And they're going to pay for it. They better pay for it. I mean, doesn't it make sense now why ICE is using unmarked vehicles and wearing masks? Because it seems to me, anyway, that there's an international terror organization employed by the Democrats to overthrow our republic. And ICE is one of the tools that Trump is using to stop it. So their lives are in danger. They're literally, like, maybe this is sensational, but it doesn't seem like a far cry to say that ICE is the front line in the civil war that's taking shape. Why do they want to keep the illegal immigrants here so badly? I mean, I think it's because they want to cheat in elections. I mean, why else would Pritzker refuse to release the voter rolls? That was the headline this morning. They're going to fight Trump every step of the way. It doesn't matter if it's legal. It doesn't matter if it's illegal. Why?
Another thing that's happened, and very few people paying attention, you probably are, which is they demanded, the DOJ did, our voter data. Not just ours in Illinois, every state's voter data.
Good.
Why? They won't tell us why. And actually, what they seem to be looking for, remember back to the 2020 elections, is they want to be able to find voter fraud, which lots of organizations have been looking for voter fraud, as you know, for a long time. There's very little voter fraud going on, very little. They're calling for all these databases so that they can look through them, and yet they won't tell you when they're going to come up with any conclusion about whatever it is they're looking for. Next year, when we have a November election, I think you're going to see two things that occur. One, you won't have had any results from this mass collection of data, of voter data. And then the second is you're going to have soldiers or people dressed as soldiers at polling places saying, we're protecting your voting rights. This is about voter integrity. And then the possibility that they'll be doing what Michael Flynn urged the president to do back in 2020, which is seize the ballot boxes at the polling places so that we can have the military do a fair count. Now, if you put all the things together that are happening right now, that wouldn't surprise me at all. Think about how hard they fought on this issue of whether the election had been stolen in 2020, right? The January 6th riot being an example of that, but lots of other things. And then all of those people at January 6th, being pardoned. All of that, put all those together and ask yourself, do you think what I just said is completely ridiculous? Do you think what I just said is something that's really possible?
It all relies on the mainstream narrative. It all relies on the propaganda that was fed to the public surrounding all of these issues. It has to happen. I'm afraid of what might happen if and when it does. But maybe saying afraid is a little bit of a strong word. I'm concerned, yet I'm enthusiastic. What are we going to do? What would you do if you were king and you could fix all of these problems? I mean, how do you explain these politicians that obviously hate the citizens of their cities and states? They make them live in fear. They make them live in squalor. They allow them to live on the streets, destroy their lives with drugs, and kill themselves. In the name of what? Freedom and democracy and culture? We're going to let our populations languish? Because why? Because fixing the problem means doing actual work. And Uncle George is paying me lots of money to let the major metropolitan centers, metropolitan, words are hard, all right? The major metropolitan centers of the United States crumble. It's the first step in destroying the country. That's why it's happening. That's why they cheat elections. To accomplish the bigger picture. What are you willing to accept? What behavior from this Trump administration are you willing to accept to stop that from happening? To stop becoming a third world country? To stop from becoming some weird communo-fascist authoritarian state owned by China, no doubt. Well, Trump is now considering the Insurrection Act, and I think it should be carefully considered, because what these people have been up to is evil.
Over a weekend. What?
The Insurrection Act, under what conditions or terms would you?
Well, I do it if it was necessary. So far, it hasn't been necessary, but we have an Insurrection Act for a reason. If I had to enact it, I'd do that. If people were being killed and courts were holding us up, or governors or mayors were holding us up, sure, I'd do that. I mean, I want to make sure that people aren't killed. We have to make sure that our cities are safe.
Bingo. So what are you willing to do? The Insurrection Act of 1807, as shared by @ToxieAvenger2 on X. The Insurrection Act of 1807 is the U.S. federal law that empowers the President of the United States to nationally deploy the U.S. military and to federalize the National Guard units of the individual states in specific circumstances, such as the suppression of civil disorder, of insurrection, and of armed rebellion against the federal governments of the United States. The Insurrection Act provides a statutory exception to the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878 that limits the president's deploying the U.S. military to enforce either civil law or criminal law within the United States. Bring it on. It's kind of scary. I'm not excited about it. But this is what happens, as I've said before, multiple times. This is what we get. Massive unrest. Disguised as, I don't know. Massive insurrection. Disguised as unrest. I think this is why we felt everything flip into overdrive in 2016 and 2017 in terms of propaganda and leftist outrage and Democrat psychosis because they thought that Hillary was going to win in 2016. But Trump won, and they didn't have the pieces in place for their staged insurrection. Because that's what it is. They're preying on the disaffected youth, the brainwashed college students who want to belong. They want to feel like they're going to make a difference. They want to feel like they're correcting the injustice, as we all do. And they said, hey, come work for me in my NGO. Now what I want you to do is go protest this thing. Here's a bunch of signs. Here's a bunch of vans. Here's the places you go. Here's the things that you say. Here's what you write in the Craigslist ad to attract other sub-intellectuals to join your cause. I don't believe that the majority is in favor of the direction these people want to take us. But there is a massive machine working against you to make you believe that this is at least a 50-50 issue. To constantly question what you believe is right and just, so that at the very least, you'll stay out of the way. If not, join their side, pick up a sign and go get arrested, which is what they really hope is going to happen. Get arrested, you're terrified, you're sitting in prison with a full-fledged Antifa leader who was put there on purpose by corrupt officials to get in your ear and say, can you believe what they did? Don't worry, I'll put you in touch with my lawyer. He's helping me, he can help you too. And then, oh, aren't you going to do us a favor? We did so much for you, we helped you out. Do I need to tell my leader that you're not worth helping because you're too afraid to get involved? It's dark. It's gloomy. But we have more good news. The police in Illinois have decided to ignore Governor Pritzker's orders and are, I don't need volume on that. Why did I do that? Maybe just a tiny little bit. Oh, come on. One click. There we go. I was listening back to my sound production from last week and I went, oh, why was that so loud? It was so quiet when I listened to it. At Chicago One, Ray writes on X, breaking, Illinois State Police are arresting paid protesters in Broadview, despite orders from Pritzker to not provide any state resources to assist ICE. Oh, feel good about that, people. Feel good. That is good stuff. That is good news. Brandon Johnson might have the city of Chicago under his boot, but J.B. Pritzker does not have the Illinois State Police under his. But I'm wondering, what happens after the feds leave? What's stopping things from going back to the way they were as soon as ICE leaves, as soon as federal officers hit the road? Get back to doing their day-to-day after they've deported all the illegal voters. We have no reason to believe that it won't go back to the way it was right back. Because we keep finding evidence of more and more corruption within the Democrat Party and amongst the uniparty Republicans. In a bombshell revelation. We learned this week that the Biden DOJ was spying on senators. Was I not sharing that? Oh, well, whatever. There was no audio, so it doesn't matter if I shared it or not. I will share this. Come on. God, this mouse. Don't get me going. I will crash out. From the Senate Judiciary Committee, the Biden FBI spied on 8 Republican senators as part of Arctic frost investigation. Grassley oversight reveals. An explosive FBI document obtained by Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley reveals the FBI targeted 8 Republican senators' personal cell phones for trolling data as part of its Arctic frost investigation. One Republican member of the House of Representatives was also impacted. The Arctic frost investigation formed the basis of Jack Smith's elector case against President Donald Trump. How long till Jack Smith gets indicted? That needs to hurry up and happen. So when Pam Bondi went before the Senate Judiciary Committee this week, which is just, I mean, as I understand it, just kind of a normal occurrence, Josh Hawley had this to say. Oh, it's really quiet. Let me fix it. Yeah, Josh Hawley was mad.
Manner of things and the current president. I've also heard them said, and I just wrote it down because I wanted to be sure I heard it correctly. I've heard them say that Joe Biden never targeted his political enemies. Joe Biden never directed his attorney general to target his political opponents. That's interesting, because I could have sworn that yesterday we learned that the FBI tapped my phone. Let's look at it. We've got a list. Tapped my phone, tapped Lindsey Graham's phone, tapped Marsha Blackburn's phone, tapped 5 other phones of United States senators. Gee, it sure looks like targeting political opponents to me, and yet I haven't heard a word from that side of the dais about any concern whatsoever. We've got nothing but concerns today, but no concern at all for a Justice Department that is tapping the phones of sitting United States senators because who knows why. They don't like them. They're members of the opposition party. They're Republicans. They're conservatives. You've seen this document, Attorney General Bondi. Well, what was going on here? Who ordered this? Who ordered the tapping of the phones of United States senators?
Wait for it.
Senator Hawley, I cannot discuss the details of that right now for very good reason.
You're going to do a thorough investigation into this, I trust. Is that correct?
We will be looking at all aspects of this, and I have talked to Director Patel at length about this.
And you're going to figure out who was involved in this, who signed off.
Lindsey Graham was really mad. I have these in a different order, but he brought up Lindsey Graham, and his response was pretty priceless as well.
You wonder why we're looking at Comey? Give me a break. Why are we looking at Comey? Because he ran an FBI and personally knew about exculpatory information and let it slide. How in the hell can 2 FBI agents interview a man who says the document you're using against a sitting president to suggest he may be a Russian agent or Carter Page that is now no longer reliable? How does that not get to the court? Can you tell me how that doesn't get to the court? You can't, can you?
I can't, Senator, and I
Can
can't
you tell me
discuss it.
why my phone records, when I'm the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, were sought by the Jack Smith agents? Why did they ask to know who I called and what I was doing from January 4th to the 7th? Can you tell me that?
No, Senator, and there were 8 senators in total.
I think I can tell them. Because they're trying to reshape the government. Right? Pam Bondi had discussions with a few Democrats, and you got, should we play? Nah, we'll break it up. I was actually, if I can just go off on a tangent as I'm known to do. I thought about sprinkling all of these great clips in between the other topics that we were talking about, because this was a pretty big occurrence. I mean, all of this news came around the time of this, pretty standard Senate Judiciary hearing. But first up, we got Rick Blumenthal from Connecticut, and this isn't all about the Comey and whatever Chris Wray's spying on senators. Of course, the Democrats wanted to talk about other stuff, but Pam Bondi just started throwing elbows.
Senator Blumenthal, I cannot believe that you would accuse me of impropriety when you lied about your military service.
I am
you
not
lied.
asking
You
you.
admitted you
I am
lied
not
to be
accusing you
elected
of
a U.S. senator.
impropriety.
You
I'm asking
lied.
you
How
about
dare you? I'm a
conversations
career prosecutor.
with
Don't
Mr.
you
Ballard,
ever challenge my integrity.
had
I have
apparently-
abided by every ethics standard. Do not question my ability to be fair and impartial as Attorney General, and anything
You'll
with
answer that
my
question to
former
another of my
firm,
colleagues.
Ballard Partners.
Thank you.
And then you got to check out the video. Find it for yourself, or find this stream on Rumble. It's elsewhere, but go to Rumble. These are cowardly slime balls. You should see them shrink in their chairs when Pam Bondi comes at them with this venom. And she's not coming for Republicans. Here's a little bit of Eric Schmidt. This is his whole 5, almost 6 minutes that because that's how we're allowed to govern, right? This is how our elected leaders are allowed to govern in the halls of Congress. They get to interview the Attorney General 5 minutes at a time. No real conversation. 5 minutes. That's all we get. Because our elitist overlords decree it to be so.
Voice.
I have to say, I am struck by the degree of the cognitive dissonance that I hear on the other side. It really is. I mean, I'm used to.
Wait a minute. Did he just say cognitive dissidence? I guess he is from Missouri.
The sort of the political debates and arguing in court and all those sorts of things. But to hear the other side of the dais talk about weaponization is truly shocking, given what we know now. And I thought what I might do is just tell a story. And these are 100% facts. Hillary Clinton, concerned about her email scandal, works with a Soros organization to cook up this Russiagate nonsense. They feed it to the intelligence agencies. And they spy, under Barack Obama's presidency, they spy on the political opponent, the Republican, running against Hillary Clinton. He gets elected. They continue the operation, and they launder this intelligence into stuff that was meant to, by the FBI and the CIA, to sideline a presidency of a duly elected president of the United States of America, to sideline him. And that continued. You heard even some people on this committee further that nonsense for 4 years. And then the FBI is involved with pre-bunking the Hunter Biden laptop story because they didn't want him to get elected again. So they pre-bunked the Hunter Biden laptop story. The American people should have been allowed to make their own judgments from that. They weren't, because the FBI called it a Russian hack and leak operation. They were meeting with social media companies every month and every week, telling them that the laptop that they knew, that they had verified in November of 2019, they knew was real and knew was his, said it was Russian disinformation. We've heard that before. And then, after Joe Biden comes in, 3 days in, they start a censorship campaign against the country, anybody who's a conservative. And now we also know that the FBI was weaponized in this Arctic frost investigation that tapped the phones of sitting U.S. senators. And also, the Republican Attorneys General Association, so let's pull in 2 more U.S. senators, Ashley Moody and myself, who were on the executive committee at that time. Charlie Kirk, political organizations they didn't agree with. This is not in the Soviet Union in the 1980s. This is in the United States of America in the last few years. And then when they thought President Trump was on the run and there's no way people would elect him, and then he announces he's running for president, 3 days later, Jack Smith's appointed to get Trump. Fani Willis brings charges against President Trump, and the assistant prosecutor meets with the White House counsel's office. Why would that happen? Then you have Alvin Bragg bring his charges. The number 3 person at DOJ goes to work for him to get Trump. All in the United States of America. This continued. And Senator Hawley asked the question, wrote it down, what is happening in this country? And I hope that MSNBC is still broadcasting this, because I'm sure their viewership hasn't heard this story that's gone on for 10 years. The truth is, they never forgave President Trump for coming down the escalator at all. They didn't like him. They didn't like the disruption. And they've spent the better part of a decade not just going after him, but demonizing half the country as fascists and Nazis and threats to democracy. And they have fueled this division in their inability to accept the fact that half of the country isn't deplorables, as Hillary Clinton called her, bitter clingers, as Barack Obama called them, or trash, as Joe Biden called them. That they rose up and they sat in their own jury box and they saw all this stuff play out over a decade and they rejected it. And now you have come in to clean that up, and you are doing a great job in doing that. And let me make this clear. There is a big difference between what happened under the Biden regime and the weaponization, and then holding those people accountable. That is not weaponization. If that doesn't happen, this will happen all over again. So your job, as you talked about in your confirmation hearing, is so important that this never happens again. And holding people accountable who are part of this conspiracy is absolutely your job. And I'm also taking, you don't have to comment on this, your unwillingness to answer questions that have come up. I am led to believe, as a former attorney general, that that might mean there's an ongoing investigation. You don't have to talk about it. The statute of limitations may have run on some of this stuff, but not on a conspiracy. And if you're a co-conspirator in mile marker 1, even if you want to get on the exit ramp in mile marker 5, you are liable for the conspiracy in mile marker 10. And we are at mile marker 10. And I will also say what's happening in this country. What's happening with the assault on ICE officers is truly shocking. Deportations are nothing new. Bill Clinton deported 12 million people. 12 million people. You didn't see this. The radicalization that's happened on the left that plays out with political violence is real. And by the way, let me also point out that if we had a scenario where John Thune was on the Supreme Court steps saying, you've reaped a whirlwind, Supreme Court justices, and then a right-wing assassin tried to kill Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and then a Republican-appointed judge only gave that person 8 years, there would be riots on the streets. Cities would be burning right now.
Could it be that Republicans are growing a spine? No. Couldn't be. I mean, maybe. Could there be another explanation for the smash mouth, no care ever, just domination that Pam Bondi is engaged in during this? I mean, do you speak this way to people that have any power or leverage left over you?
Was no case. And Caroline Leavitt is one of the most trustworthy human beings I know.
So
and,
was she?
Was
she?
If you worked for me, you would have been fired because you were censured by Congress for lying with your
we can stipulate to. You can stipulate to all your personal attacks on the Democratic members of the committee.
Personal attacks. You've been attacking my FBI director. You've been attacking my office. You've been attacking.
But what we're interested in.
Borders are.
What we're interested in is the ansar to these oversight questions.
You want your
you were asked by my colleague. You were asked by my colleague.
Attacking good people.
Regular order, Madam Chair, so I can ask a question. You were asked by my colleague from Vermont whether you will support providing a video or audio tape, if it exists, of Mr. Holman taking $50,000 in bribe money from the FBI.
Which is unsubstantiated.
Will you support a request by this committee to provide that tape or tapes to the committee? Yes or no?
Senator Schiff, you can talk to Director Patel about that.
Well, I'm talking to you about it. You're the Attorney General. This will be your decision. Will you
You
support?
don't have to tell me what is my decision and
Well,
what is
then-
not
then-
my decision.
then-
I
and you-
said
and
you
you
can
don't
talk
have
to
to-
Director
and you
Patel.
don't have to try to-
You think
you
you've
don't
got a
have to-
gotcha with Tom Homan, our
Excuse me,
borders czar,
excuse me, you
who's
don't have-
been out there
excuse me.
fighting for our country
Madam
since
Chair,
Donald Trump took office.
I'm trying to ask a question. Regular order, please. And you don't have to defer to the FBI director to pass the buck. So I'm asking you, will you support a request so that the committee, or indeed, I believe the American people should be able to see that video or audio tape? Will you support that request?
Will you apologize to Donald Trump
So
for
I
trying
guess,
to
I guess
impeach
the
him
answer is you won't support that
after
request.
you now know that
So
Joe
let
Biden
me-
tried
let
to
me
cover up
do
Hunter
this.
Biden's involvement with
Excuse
Ukraine?
me. Let me do this because
Was-
how did they, California? How did you make him your senator? Was it even legit? Was it even a legitimate election? I mean, I have my doubts. At this point, I don't think elections are fair anymore. I don't think they're free. I think there's too much money involved. There's too much money involved for the elitists to allow us to choose our own leaders. I mean, if there's too much money in the NFL and the NBA for people to let those games be decided based on the skill of the players, then what chance do we have that our elections are free and fair and a representation of the will of the people? The crushing continues in the Senate Judiciary hearing with Sheldon Whitehouse from Rhode Island.
Let me ask you something else. There's been public reporting that Jeffrey Epstein showed people photos of President Trump with half-naked young women. Do you know if the FBI found those photographs in their search of Jeffrey Epstein's safe or premises or otherwise? Have you seen any such thing?
You know, Senator Whitehouse, you sit here and make salacious remarks, once again trying to slander President Trump left and right, when you're the one who was taking money from one of Epstein's closest confidants, I believe, I could be wrong, correct me, Reid Hoffman, who was with Jeffrey Epstein on multiple occasions. And the senator sitting right next to you tried to block the flight logs from being released. Yet you're grilling me on President Trump and some photograph with Epstein? Come on.
The question is, did the FBI find those photographs that have been discussed publicly by a witness who claimed Jeffrey Epstein showed them to him? You don't know anything about that. Okay.
He's another slimy little Democrat worm. He's horrified. Look at the video. They're all afraid of Pam Bondi. And also, by the way, they can't come off. They can't come off the Epstein thing. Further solidifying the the theory, I suppose, that it really was a Democrat hoax, because it's all they have to hold on to. At least it seems to me. Here, Alex Padilla, remember him? You will in a second. He gets to take his turn with Pam Bondi.
Attorney General Bondi, you are the Attorney General of the United States. Director Patel reports to you. Do you believe?
Oh my God, doesn't this just feel like idiocracy?
Doing a good job, yes or no?
I believe Director Patel is doing a great job. You know where he is right now, Senator Padilla? Right now, you asked me a question.
Yes,
Director
I know
Patel
where he
right
is,
now
and I know
is
where
in
he's headed
Chicago,
because you said
Senator
it earlier
Durbin,
in the hearing.
fighting to keep
You've said it
Chicago
earlier in the hearing, and yes, I have been paying
You
attention.
know, you want order in
Chairman.
here now, yet you stormed the director.
Another slimy Democrat worm that can't take the heat.
Of Homeland.
It's all over his face. You got to see the body language. I'm really not trying to drive you to my Rumble channel, but boy, it is priceless.
And Security Kristi Noem, you sure didn't have order that day, did you, Senator?
Attorney General, you are under oath. I did not storm the secretary, the video.
Oh, that was
makes
on
that very
video. That
clear.
video has been released, I believe, very public.
Mr. Chairman, recent actions raised.
We have the video. We have the video, by the way, right here.
I have questions for Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the secretary, because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen felon criminals that you're rotating on your.
He's trying to shove his way in. Saying that he stormed the meeting may be 15% too far.
Hands off.
Now he's wrestling with officers out in the hall. I mean, it was all a publicity stunt. Who are we kidding? That's exactly what he wanted. He wanted to charge in there, make an ass out of himself, get arrested, and I don't know, show the world what a freaking idiot he is. I mean, speaking of freaking idiots, we got our final and my favorite exchange from the Senate Judiciary meeting this week. It's Mazie Hirono.
I would say, and Gail Slater, if I can finish, Gail Slater is doing an incredible job running my antitrust unit.
It's highly likely, Ms. Bondi, that the same lobbyists who met with your people and basically got rid of the antitrust case.
Senator, I don't think a lot of people like that you were out protesting with Antifa
right now. Next question. You have fired dozens of career prosecutors because they worked on cases involving President Trump or January 6 rioters. For example, one career federal prosecutor who secured over 100 convictions in Florida. He also spent time in D.C. prosecuting January 6 cases. He received an outstanding review only 2 days before you signed a memo firing him. The memo cited no reason for his firing. Are you firing career prosecutors solely because they worked on cases like January 6th that the president doesn't like?
Senator Hirono, I am not going to talk about personnel matters with you.
Well, we all know that hundreds of career prosecutors have left the DOJ, and literally hundreds, we're told.
Because they were partisan prosecutors that couldn't be trusted to conduct actual justice.
Yeah, Senator, are you familiar with the one that threw a sandwich at an ICE officer? Are you a Homeland Security officer?
Here is the
Are you familiar with the one who went out on her lunch break and was making obscene gestures?
Would you say that DOJ losing these career prosecutors and the thousands of hours of experience they have prosecuting criminals, that is not a reassuring situation?
Senator, many employees took the fork in the road and resigned. DOJ is hiring committed prosecutors who will actually come into the office and work and not work remotely and prosecute violent criminals around the country and terrorists. And I'm very proud of the work all of our prosecutors.
I'm running out of time, so I think you should stop with your continuous interruptions, in my opinion. Mr. Chairman, I just want to close by saying that
she can't take her eyes off of the printed statement that she was no doubt given to read. All right, we'll finish.
What was once the Department of Justice has become the Department of Revenge and Corruption. Rather than pursuing cases without fear or favor, this DOJ seeks to favor the president's friends and instill fear in his alleged enemies. If you're a friend of the president, this corrupt DOJ will bend over backwards to help you, just like it dropped the bribery investigation of Tom Homan, like it's considering paying money.
Dropped because there was no evidence. Dropped because there was no evidence. They don't tell you that on the mainstream propaganda, do they?
the January 6th rioters, and like it has put antitrust enforcement decisions in the hands of well-connected lobbyists. But if you're on the wrong side of this president, you will face the wrath of DOJ, no matter what the facts, law, or justice support. James Comey is indicted days after the president's social media directive. Experienced career prosecutors are fired just because they were assigned to work on January 6 cases. Blue states are sued to get highly sensitive private voter data, whereas
I mean, we know why they're all fired, right? Because they trampled the rights of American citizens. They hid exculpatory evidence. They were the willing tools of the Biden DOJ that waged legal war against American citizens with genuine grievances. How is Mazie Hirono even on the Senate Judiciary? I mean, she literally sat there and read from a paper almost the entire time. She has to be one of, if not the dumbest senator in the U.S. Let me just say, if I wanted to sabotage the U.S. or any country, I would definitely, at least one prong of my assault on this hypothetical country that I'm trying to destroy, hypothetically, I would definitely steal elections to put moronic politicians in charge of policy. These cowardly morons. That's what they are. Cowardly morons who will sell you out for their own profit and political power. And how long has it been going on? Thank God we have brave people like Pam Bondi throwing it back in their faces. And maybe you're upset at the pace that the Justice Department has been moving. You're upset at the questionable decisions Pam Bondi has been making. I'm not saying you shouldn't be. But I love it. I love the open assaults and disrespects and apparent disdain that she has for all these slime balls. And I love being able to watch them squirm. As you should as well, in my opinion. It's a beautiful thing. Some of these people are the absolute scum of the earth and deserve to spend the rest of their lives in prison. Right along with, I would imagine, Katie Porter. You heard about her, I'm sure. She wants to be the next governor of California. But apparently, see, I can't help but wonder how these tapes are being made available. It has to be because these interns, these staffers, even maybe the producers of these programs are exercising their power to make sure that this scum is at least deterred from climbing the political ladder. Now, Katie Porter, this was from @Cam_Cawthorn, writes on X, Katie Porter, who is running for governor in California, lashes out at a CBS reporter and abruptly ends the interview after she asked routine questions other candidates were also asked, she claims. This is a pre-taped interview, but somehow the public gets this cut. Thank God.
What do you say to the 40% of California voters who you'll need in order to win, who voted for Trump?
How would I need them in order to win, ma'am?
Well, unless you think you're going to get 60% of the vote. You think you'll get 60%. Everybody who did not vote for Trump will vote for you. That's what you're saying.
In a general election, yes. If it is me versus a Republican, I think that I will win the people who did not vote for Trump.
What if it's you versus another Democrat?
I don't intend that to be the case.
So how do you not intend that to be the case? Are you going to ask them not to run?
No, I'm saying I'm going to build the support. I have the support already in terms of name recognition. And so I'm going to do the very best I can to make sure that we get through this primary in a really strong position. But let me be clear with you. I represented Orange County. I represented a purple area. I have stood on my own 2 feet and won Republican votes before. That's not something every candidate in this race can say. If you're from a deep blue area, if you're from LA or you're from Oakland, you don't have an experience.
But you just said you don't need those Trump voters.
Well, you asked me if I needed them to win.
So you don't
I
think
feel like this is unnecessarily argumentative. What is your question?
The question is the same thing I asked everybody, that this is being called the empowering voters to stop Trump's power grab. Every other candidate has answered this question. This is not
correct. And I said I support it.
So, and the question is, what do you say to the 40% of voters who voted for Trump?
Oh, I'm happy to say that. It's the do you need them to win part that I don't understand. I'm happy to answer the question as you have it written, and I'll answer it.
And
she's got written questions. She's got written campaign approved questions on CBS. I think the picture is becoming clearer here.
Also ask the other candidates, do you think you need any of those 40% of California voters to win? And you're saying, no, you don't.
No, I'm saying I'm going to try to win every vote I can. And what I'm saying to you is that.
Well, to those voters. Okay, so you.
I don't want to keep doing this. I'm going to call it. Okay. Thank you.
You're not going to do the interview with us?
Nope, not like this. I'm not. Not with 7 follow-ups to every single question you ask.
Every other candidate has answered.
I don't care. I don't care. I want to have a pleasant, positive conversation in which you ask me about every issue on this list. And if every question you're going to make up a follow-up question, then we're never going to get there.
Yeah, she wants you to stick to the list of approved questions that she's got canned answers for. Silly reporter trying to do her diligence as a journalist. Why can't we have that?
And we're just going to circle around.
I am an investigative
I have never had to do
reporter.
this before, ever.
You've never had to have a conversation with
to end
a
an
reporter?
interview.
Okay, but every other candidate has done this.
What part of, I'm me, I'm running for governor because I'm a leader. So I am going to make.
So you're not going to answer questions from reporters? Okay, why don't we go through? I will continue to ask follow-up questions because that's my job as a journalist, but I will go through and ask these. And if you don't want to answer, you don't want to answer. So nearly every legislative.
I don't want to have an unhappy experience with you. And I don't want this all on camera.
I don't want to have an unhappy experience with you either. I would love to continue to ask these questions so that we can show our viewers what every candidate feels about every one of these issues that they care about. And redistricting is a massive issue. We're going to do an entire story just on the responses to that question. And I've asked everybody the same follow-up questions.
Why doesn't she run for governor? I would feel much more comfortable with the journalist conducting the interview being in charge of running the state of California than I would this crazy person. She's a crazy person. And here she is again, being a crazy person on again, a pre-taped remote interview. And this is just, I mean, I'm not speechless. You wouldn't believe me if I said that anyway. It's concerning.
You ready for stat number 2?
I am.
All right. $632, which is how much you save in fuel and maintenance costs when you replace your traditional car with an EV, with an electric vehicle. So I lease a Chevy Bolt. It is the best car that I have ever owned. I just plug it into the garage, 3-hole prong plug, and I never have to go to the gas station.
That's awesome. And $632.
Now you see movements in the background. And that's where the sensation comes from.
is real money. And I know here at UCI, we have a National Fuel Center Research Center, and they're also doing work on how to make electric vehicles affordable, including for low and moderate income people, working moms, single.
It appears that she's sitting in some kind of a kitchen. Her response to this question on this issue is not the core of the content here. She's sitting in some kind of a kitchen, maybe a break room at her office. You can see a refrigerator and a stove and cabinets and countertops. And there's someone moving around in the background.
Moms like me, people who really could benefit from an extra $632
She's a single mom. I wonder why.
in their pocket. And it's also not just the individual savings, but it's also the total savings for our economy. So I'm on the oversight committee, you might know, and that is where we did a study recently this fall in September. And what it showed is if we don't electrify our transportation sector, that we're going to lose more than 500,000 Californians dying prematurely to air pollution.
Now the person has entered the shot again in the background and is oddly wearing a mask.
And other problems, and the state could lose. Get out of my fucking shot.
I wanted to tell you that that's actually incorrect. It's not that it's electric vehicles, it's that if we don't meet the commitments under the Paris Climate Accord.
Okay, it does. Okay, you also were in my shot before that. Stay out of my shot. Okay, I'm going to start again with electric vehicles saving us money.
Boy, what a peach. And I mean, this was pre-recorded. This is not what was released to the public. This was obtained by Politico from a source. Who wouldn't want to expose this woman for who she really is? I mean, imagine what she's like when there aren't cameras in the room. Well, we have this story from the New York Post further exposing. It's having a hard time. I thought I shared it. We got to do this once a show. It's custom. It is tradition. That shit breaks and throws me into a fit of rage that I can barely recover from. Why is there a third page ad on this? Boy, print journalism is really struggling. The headline from the New York Post. Katie Porter verbally abused then husband, an explicit tirade, effing idiot, and too effing dumb to operate a phone, end quote, court docs say. Anna Young writes, this fight sure got heated. California gubernatorial contender Katie Porter once dumped scalding mashed potatoes on her then husband's head during a fight. Resurfaced divorce documents allege as clips of her fiery temper continue to go viral. The former Golden State Congresswoman's ex-hubby, Matthew Hoffman, filed for divorce in 2013 and detailed that the Democrat, who has a reputation for exploding at her staff, frequently abused him verbally and threw, quote, toys, books, and other objects at him during their marriage. I'm sure we're all shocked. How could that be? She seems like such a nice lady in person. These two videos of her being a horrific witch behind the scenes must just be, oh, she wasn't feeling well. She fired a staffer who didn't get tested when she got COVID weeks later. Horrible person. Horrible, evil. I could say, one could say, would be an absolute tragedy. Why do they want to bring people in? Why do they want to bring these people in? These soulless, hateful, selfish people. Why do the elitists want these people to be our leaders? I'm reminded of when Kamala Harris was quoted as saying her citizens are going to be begging her for a loaf of bread or something to that effect. Evil people chomping at the bit and salivating to bring their authoritarian boot down on you for their own political and economic benefit. I wonder how rich Katie Porter is. You got time? You got time to hang out with me while we find out? Katie Porter net worth 2025. Give me some. No, thanks, Google. I am not interested in your 2 million. So she's got room to grow. She's, you know what that says to me? That says she is bribable. She's got high hopes. She's aiming high. She's been a congressman. Now she wants to be governor of California. We can't let that happen. You gotta share these videos far and wide. Because we have to stop these people. And cheers to the staffer who was brave enough to, hopefully they're still alive. We got a few developing stories. I know you hear the outro music. I should probably bump it up a little bit. I don't generally like covering stories that have no resolution, but there's some interesting things coming. China announced that it is going to be releasing, enforcing crazy export controls. The White House shared Donald Trump's post on from Truth Social. He writes, "It has just been learned that China has taken an extraordinarily aggressive position on trade in sending an extremely hostile letter to the world, stating that they were going to, effective November 1st, 2025, impose large-scale export controls on virtually every product they make, and some not even made by them. This affects all countries without exception, and was obviously a plan devised by them years ago. It is absolutely unheard of in international trade and a moral disgrace in dealing with other nations." Basically, and this is my own editorializing, China is now saying that we are going to decide which countries get which Chinese products. Donald Trump continues, "Based on the fact that China has taken this unprecedented position and speaking only for the USA and not other nations who were similarly threatened, starting November 1st, 2025 or sooner, depending on any further actions or changes taken by China, the United States of America will impose a tariff of 100% on China, over and above any tariff that they are currently paying. Also, on November 1st, we will impose export controls on any and all critical software. It is impossible to believe that China would have taken such an action, but they have, and the rest is history. Thank you for your attention to this matter." Most recently, Rapid Response 47 posted another Trump Truth Social post from today saying, "Don't worry about China." This is from @RealDonaldTrump. "It will all be fine. Highly respected President Xi just had a bad moment. He doesn't want depression for his country, and neither do I. The USA wants to help China, not hurt it." President DJT. So perhaps crisis averted on this front. But it's developing. Also developing, the Qatari base in Idaho that you may have heard about turned out to be a pretty sensational revelation, even though some of the more alt-right activists are still soiling themselves about it. @Pete Hegseth took to X to write, "Important clarification. The U.S. military has a long-standing partnership with Qatar, including today's announced cooperation with F-15QA aircraft. However, to be clear, Qatar will not have their own base in the United States, nor anything like a base. We control the existing base like we do with all partners. So perhaps we can put that to rest. It remains to be seen. As I say, they're developing. So make sure you're back here on Sunday at 11 a.m. to get some follow-up on these stories. If there is any follow-up to be had, you can follow me on X at earthvox. Send me an email, therealearthvox at protonmail.com. You can also leave me a voicemail. I would love to hear from you. 701-787-1121. I'll be back.